So in part three of this series, we'll pick it up from deterioration as far as the relational stages go. There are two arrows here that we want to pay attention to. The one that goes down to dissolving the relationship, and then the one that goes up to repairing the relationship. Now we'll get back to dissolve stage and repair stage. Just suffice it to say that one terminates the relationship, the dissolve stage. The repair stage then sends us back into the relationship, either back into intimacy or involvement or back into contact. We'll talk about that in the next installment. What I wanted to talk about, though, on this one is the importance of these two arrows. And these arrows represent, so the bottom one represents why we leave, and the top one represents why we stay. So I'm going to get into these reasons in not very much depth because I'm expecting you actually to go through and read about these in supplemental reading that I have on the class website. And I'll give you the URL information for that. I can't link you out to that. For some reason, YouTube won't allow me to link out. So you'll have to go through and put in the URLs and find these links. It's pretty easy to do. You can just find the link to it at the top of the class webpage, The Grace of Divorce. Click on that, or just type in the links themselves and they will take you there. So first off, why we leave. The very first reason is the unrealistic beliefs that we hold within relationships. And typically, these unrealistic beliefs come from our own cultural context. They come from the way we saw masculine and feminine roles executed within our own family. And then we go through and try to maybe hold our own companions to those same beliefs. I get into a lot more detail about that here at graceofdivorce.wordpress.com. Unrealistic beliefs, if you type that in, that'll take you right to that post, that chapter that talks about this reason why we leave. Another one is undefined expectations. Now you'll notice that unrealistic beliefs and undefined expectations on the surface really aren't any kind of a big deal. They're not deal breakers like adultery would be, or addiction, or child molestation, or anything that way. I mean, these are nuanced reasons that go through and start to destroy relationships on small communicative levels, okay? So undefined expectations, we've talked about expectations before. We've read about them with Ruiz's concept in The Track of Love and The Track of Fear, that love has no expectations, but you know what? We're going to have them one way or the other. And we might not go through and define what those expectations are. We might have inherent expectations and yet not let our significant other know what those are. So you can read more about these at this URL, the same Grace of Divorce website, and go through and click on undefined expectations. You'll need to read that to get into more explanation. Another reason why we have a tendency to take off is because of the terms that we use. These are terms of extreme, like you always play bunco on Friday night, or you never come home from the office on time. When we start to use these terms, they start to go through and substantiate certain behaviors. And you can read more about that at this website. Same place, just go to terms of extreme and read that post there. Change is inevitable, something we're all going to go through. We're going to go through physical changes. We're going to go through psychological changes. We're going to go through spiritual changes. And for the most part, we don't handle those well because we are people who avoid uncertainty. And there's nothing certain about a relationship. And that becomes one of the big reasons why we bail, why we leave. So again, you can read more about change there at this URL. Lastly is sex, another reason why we leave. It really ought to be a reason why we hang out, why we stay. But for a lot of people, it's not. And I get into a lot more depth there at this URL, or again, just go to Grace of Divorce and click on the chapter Sex and read about what's happening there. Okay. So from there, then we transition into reasons why we stay. And by far, the top number one reason is fear. And we fear all kinds of things. Fear of being on our own, fear of having to date again, fear of what our parents might say, fear of what our religious leaders might do, all kinds of fear. Fear of the stigma of being a divorcee. And that's, you know what, that's plenty to be afraid of. Write more about that, talk about more reasons involved with fear at this URL. The next reason is this concept of inertia, and it's the idea that objects in motion stay in motion, objects in rest stay at rest. Objects in motion stay in motion unless they are exerted upon a force equal or opposite to the force of the object in motion. And you know what? That describes a lot of marriages as well. There's nothing that really acted upon them that kept them from staying their course. And so they just kind of move on. Nothing wrong with that necessarily. Nothing right with that either. There's just not a whole lot of attention paid to it. It just keeps on going. So read this link that gets more into that concept of inertia, especially as it talks about parallel living. Next is a reason we all seem to find some level of justification in, and that is this concept of children. We're staying together for the kids. And we're seeing spikes in divorce rates with empty nesters, folks whose children have left them. Perhaps you're the youngest in your family and you're the last one out, and you're dealing with that kind of drama within your own family. I've written quite a bit here about this concept of kids and why we stay for them. Kids are smarter than that. They can usually figure out that the only reason why mom and dad are hanging out together is because of them. And frankly, that's not fair to them either. What really irks me is when young couples who are struggling are counseled by their religious leaders to, in order to abate the issues they're having within their marriage, to have kids, as if that's going to go through and take care of everything. I'm here to tell you it won't. It's not going to. So read this post here about why we stay children. Next is this idea of emotional attachment. And if we're talking about the L word, as far as love is concerned, that's a great reason to stay. And there's certainly a lot to be said about that. But there's a lot more to be said about other emotions, why we stay. Emotions like jealousy, or emotions like, well, we already talked about fear, but there might be a level of control. We like to exert control, and this person allows us to do that. Or we like to be controlled, and this person controls us. So this talks a little bit more about those reasons why we stay. Not very positive ideas so far, until really we come to this concept, this idea of commitment. There are three levels of commitment that we make. One is the have to level. We call this perhaps the shotgun level of commitment, where we've done the zygote tango, somebody got knocked up, and now everybody's expecting us to get married. The second level of commitment is the ought to level of commitment that I talk about here at this post. And the third being and perhaps the most appropriate, the one that we probably all ought to aspire to, the want to level of commitment. Okay, so read about that again at The Grace of Divorce. You've seen this before. I brought this up in class. If you were paying attention, this is the website, and you can find the URL to this at the top right-hand column of the class blog page. I've just put it up there so you can find it easily. Click on that and you'll find most of the posts. If you can't find them, scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, then click on older posts and you'll find 2 or 3 more there. Okay, so this is your assigned reading. You need to know this stuff, not just for the final, but for some level of acuity and success in your relationships.